All right, while I'm doing that, we're back on the record on State versus Rosario. Mr. Rosario is present with his attorneys, dressed as he was this morning. Feet are still underneath the table, can't be seen by the jury. All right, anything we need to address at this time? Is your next witness Ms. Gutierrez?
No, Your Honor. The state's going to call a crime scene technician, fire marshal, and then the medical examiner, or the associate medical examiner.
Okay.
And I say that because before Detective Thorpe testifies, and he would be the witness after the medical examiner, I would like the court to once again tell me exactly what I can say so I can write it down verbatim.
Well, and I need to tell him too, so that he knows.
Yes. Other than that, we're ready to go.
Okay. So you're expecting Ms. Gutierrez tomorrow?
Depends on how far we get, how quickly. She's the witness after Detective Thorpe.
All right. Did you have an opportunity to talk to her at lunchtime, Mr. Whedon?
Yes, it was a paper process.
Yes. All right, ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's bring him back in.
You're there.
State recognized presence of the jury.
We do, Your Honor.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, welcome back. I hope you all had a good lunch. I have to ask you this question every time. Anybody see, hear, or read anything about this case while you were at lunch? All right, thank you very much. State, you may call your next witness.
The state calls Joanna Fletcher.
Joanna Fletcher.
Yes. You may inquire.
Could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
Joanna Fletcher, Fletcher.
And
The District 9 Medical Examiner's Office.
How long have you been employed with the District 9 Medical Examiner's Office?
Approximately 3.5 years.
What is it you do there?
I'm a medical legal death investigator for the investigations unit.
Can you generally describe your duties in that role?
Yep, I take death reports on a daily basis and respond out to scenes to provide our pathologists with the context for when someone passes away.
Were you previously employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
And how long did you work there?
Just over 2 years.
What was your title for the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
I was a crime scene investigator for the forensics unit.
And what were your day-to-day duties as a crime scene investigator?
We would respond to various crimes around the county, document it, collect, process evidence, and provide reports.
Was your role with the Sheriff's Office similar to the role and function you perform now?
In that it's scene investigation, yes, but it was more entailed with crime scene investigation.
Can you tell us a little bit about your educational background and the training you received at the Sheriff's Office in order to become a crime scene investigator?
Yes, sir. I got my undergraduate degree from the University of Florida in anthropology with focus in forensics, and then I got my master's degree again in anthropology with focus in forensics at the University of Central Florida. When I graduated, I was employed with the Sheriff's Office and received approximately 100 hours of on-the-job training with various courses around the country.
So like me, you talk rather quickly, so try to slow down a little bit. I can see the court reporter's fingers moving very quickly. So, were you employed and on duty as a crime scene investigator with the Sheriff's Office back on September 18th of 2013?
Yes, sir.
And on that morning, did you respond as the lead crime scene investigator to a residence at 5020 Terminal Drive?
Yes, sir.
And is that residence in Orange County, Florida?
Yes, it is.
And was that response in reference to a homicide investigation?
At the time, it was a death investigation.
Yes, ma'am. What time did you arrive?
I believe it was 7:40 in the morning. Oh, I'm sorry, no, 8:20 in the morning. 7:40 is when I got the call. Sorry.
No problem. And approximately what time did you depart the scene that day?
Approximately 3 p.m.
So you were there around 5 hours, a little over 5 hours? A little under 5 hours.
Over 7 hours? Approximately 7 hours.
Right. Did any other members of the forensic unit respond?
Yes, sir. My assistant squad leader responded.
And who was that?
Vanessa Nylander.
And what were her duties as an assistant squad leader on the scene that day?
Basically, she's kind of my right-hand person. Anything I need, she helps me with measurements, processing, that type of stuff. So while I took lead, she assisted me with whatever I needed that day.
What did you do when you first arrived on the scene that day?
I made contact with the lead deputy out there in order to determine what information they knew at the time.
Did you eventually, so you were briefed on what had occurred up to that point?
Yes, sir.
Did you eventually meet with Detective Benjamin Ford?
Yes, sir.
And at some point, did you document the scene with photographs?
Yes, I did.
Did you meet Detective Ford before or after the photographs?
Before I took photographs.
Now, do you remember how many total photographs you took on the scene that day?
Approximately 200.
Now, did you see any damage to the windows of the residence?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you learn how that damage occurred?
Yes, sir.
What was it that you learned?
I had learned that the fire department responded out in reference to a fire, and during their attempt to subdue the fire, they had broken out many of the windows in the home.
So when you were photographing, did you photograph the exterior of the residence?
Yes, sir.
And did you eventually make your way into the interior of the residence?
Yes, I did.
Did you document the interior of the residence with photographs?
Yes, I did.
And did you prepare a diagram, or was a diagram prepared of the interior of the scene?
Yes, it was.
Did you notice any damage done by the fire department when you went inside the residence?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe that damage, please?
Again, in attempts to subdue the fire, a lot of the ceiling had been pulled down, resulting in drywall and insulation being on the floor, as well as any soot deposited had obviously had track marks through it from when people were coming in and out with the fire department.
Did you notice anything about the windows that were still intact?
They were, in fact, locked.
Any observations about the security of the sliding glass doors?
It, again, was locked, and then there was a bar in the track to prevent it from coming open, from sliding open.
And permission to publish State's Exhibit 3?
Granted?
Fletcher, there's a laser pointer in front of you. And over your left-hand shoulder, it states Exhibit 3, which should be the diagram of the residence of 5020 Turnbull Drive. Do you recognize it as such?
Yes, sir, I do.
So I'm going to start by showing some photographs. Your Honor, our court states the witness would states Exhibit G.
You may.
It's shown to counsel. It's a composite series of photographs. Ms. Fletcher, let me know if I can read them.
Okay.
Do you recognize the photographs in stage G?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what do you recognize them to be?
The residence, mostly the interior of the residence.
And are they fair and accurate depictions of the interior of the residence at 5020 Turnbull Drive on September 18th?
Yes, sir.
This time we move the court to admit State's Exhibit G as State 7.
Any objection?
No objection.
This will be received as State's Exhibit number 7 without objection.
Commission publish State 7 now?
Granted.
What I'd like to do, Ms. Fletcher, is we'll move through your photographs and sort of alternatively look at the diagram so we can let the jury know what we're looking at. First photograph, G1 of State 7, what is that a photograph of?
That's the front entry door.
And is there some insulation there at the bottom of the door?
Yes, sir.
We'll go ahead and point it out, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm publishing G2 of State's Exhibit 7, what are we looking at in that photograph?
That's a kitchen that's in the interior of the residence, right when you step through the front door.
So that would be, going back to State's Exhibit 5, where at?
It'd be this area right here.
And in this photograph, in what direction are we taking it? Let me show you again.
I'm sorry, what?
Which direction, where are you standing in the diagram when you take that?
Oh, okay. I'm standing just in front of the entry right here. I'd stepped in the front door. It's to my right.
Okay. Now, do you notice anything on the floor of the residence in that photograph?
Yes, sir. That's the soot that I was talking about that had been deposited from the fire, and then you can see where it appears to be cleaned or walked through from the fire department and various first responders walking through the residence.
So the tile floor itself was white, and any black areas is remnants of the fire?
Correct, sir.
Now, publishing G3, State's Exhibit 7. Can you tell us what you're looking at in that photograph?
That's a living area inside the residence.
Now, is there any, I'll use the word ambulatory devices in that photograph? It's a little faint, I can show you the actual photograph if you like.
No problem. There's a wheelchair right in this area of that photograph.
If it's a wheelchair, that would have been a lot easier. There was a wheelchair in the living room?
Yes, sir, there was.
In the living area, again, what we just saw is where on the diagram?
This area right here.
G4, State's Exhibit 7. What area of the residence is that?
It's a dining room that's off that living room.
Right, and again, you see the soot or remnants of the fire on the floor, correct?
Yes, sir.
And going back to State's Exhibit 5, what area were we just looking at?
It's this room right here.
G5, State's Exhibit 7. What area of the residence is that?
Oh, that's the other side of the living room, just the other wall of the living room.
In a different direction?
Yes, sir.
Photograph G6 of State's Exhibit 7.
That's, once I've stepped into the dining room, it's just another wall of the dining room.
And is that a walker in the foreground? To the right?
Yes, sir, it is.
G7 of State's Exhibit 7.
Again, I'm still standing in the dining room now, taking a photograph of the other wall. It's an entryway into what ended up being a laundry room.
Let me show you the diagram, State's Exhibit 5. What area are you looking into there?
So I'd be standing right in this doorway looking into this room right here.
What is the room beyond that room, to the far maybe north of the residence, up here at the top?
It was an additional room that appeared to be a sewing room.
And finally, I'm going to show you G8 of State's Exhibit 7. Do you recall which room that is?
Yes, it's one of those spare bedrooms on the other side of the house.
What observations did you make in regards to the state of the residence, aside from the damage that has been done by the fire department?
Many of the items appeared to be open as far as like cabinets, drawers. It appeared that it might have been ransacked at some point.
When I approached the witness, what's been marked as states exhibits H and I.
Yes, sir.
For those composites, Ms. Fletcher, I'm going to hand you states exhibit H, which is 5 photographs, and then states exhibit I, which is 4 photographs. Please look at each and let me know when you have a chance to do so.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize the images of those photographs?
I do.
And are they fair and accurate depictions of locations within the residence at 5020 Turnbull Drive?
Yes, sir.
And at this time, we ask the court to admit states exhibits H and I as states 8 and 9.
Any objection?
No.
These will be received without objection. H will be 8, I will be 9.
I have permission to have, publish the exhibits and have the witness use them to illustrate your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We're going to start with states exhibit now in evidence 8. And I'd ask you about evidence that you had seen regarding the house being fused or ransacked. Can you show us what we're looking at or tell us what we're looking at in that photograph?
Yes, sir. This is another spare bedroom. In the photograph, you can see this drawer sitting out on the bed. This one's slightly open. And then the cabinet on this wall is ajar.
I think H2 is a better angle of that cabinet, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so that's in the same room as H1?
Yes.
Publishing H5, States Exhibit 8. Where is that piece of furniture located in the house?
It's a cabinet that's located in the dining room back on the other side of the house. It's actually this cabinet right here.
All right. And did you photograph that piece of furniture because of the open drawers?
Yes, sir.
Now, moving into the victim's bedroom, you eventually went in there and photographed that bedroom, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what it is that you observed when you walked into the victim's bedroom?
Similar to the rest of the house, there was evidence of the windows being broken out, the ceilings being pulled down, evidence of a fire. But in addition to that, there was a large amount of suspected blood on the mattress and the floor in one area of the bedroom.
Did you make any observations in the victim's bedroom that shed light on the sequence of events? In other words, when, what might have happened within the house?
Yes, sir. On the mattress, there was what appeared to be a white fitted sheet. And again, with the rest of the house being ransacked, there had been some items placed on top of the bed. When you looked at the white sheet, you could see that there were voids in the smoke damage. So whatever had been sitting there was sitting there when the fire started, when soot was deposited, and then that item had been removed. So I could actually see the void where what appeared to be a drawer was, and within that void, there was a blood stain underneath. So it helped me determine what the sequence of events were prior to the fire department coming out.
I'm going to publish I-1, which states Exhibit 9. Does that photograph illustrate what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Could you use it and circle the portions that you're referring to as voids?
Yes, sir. This is that drawer I was just talking about. You can see the void right here where the drawer would have been sitting initially when the soot was deposited. Again, you can see the voids on this table. You can see that whatever item had been sitting on it when the soot was deposited is no longer on it, so it leaves these voids.
So did that lead you to believe that that drawer was on the bed when the fire was started?
Yes, sir.
I-2 of State's Exhibit 9. It's a close-up. If you could point out the sort of nightstand that you referred to, the white nightstand and the voids.
Yeah, you can see it here, and you can make out that there had been items sitting there at the time the soot was deposited.
And one more photograph, I-3 of State's Exhibit 9.
It's just a closer-up photograph. You can see again that void, that suspected blood stain on the sheet, and then it would be from what we believe to be that drawer.
On the left side of that photograph, that was a closet that was found inside the master bedroom. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Were the doors open like that and items had been pulled out when you looked in the bedroom?
Yes, sir.
Was there ever any indication of fire within that closet that you were aware of?
Not that I was aware of, no.
Okay. And you saw other areas within the residence where fire had been present?
Yes, sir.
And finally, I'm going to publish I-4 of State's Exhibit 9. What is it we're looking at, and why did you take that specific photograph?
That's a view of the bed once the sheet was removed and the items were removed from on top of it. I took it not only to show, again, the patterns that were there due to the fire, but also due to the large amount of blood that had actually soaked through the mattresses.
Now, may I approach the witness who has been previously marked as State's Exhibit J?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Fletcher, this is State's Exhibit J. It's a series of 7 photographs. Would you look at them and let me know when you have to do so?
Yes, sir.
You recognize the images depicted in those photos?
I do.
And are they specifically images of the interior walkway into the bedroom and specifically the victim's bed?
Yes, sir.
Are they fair and accurate depictions of what you saw on the morning of September 18th?
There.
I would ask the court to admit State's Exhibit J as State's 10.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
This will be admitted without objection as State's Exhibit number 10.
Commissioner, publish State's 10 now?
Granted.
So we'll do it the same way, Ms. Fletcher. Go through the photographs, and if you can tell the jury, the members of the jury, what it is we're looking at in each one. Just want to back it out a little bit. From what angle is that taking and what are we looking at?
No, that's standing in the entryway into the bedroom as if you were about to walk into it.
Now publishing J2 of State's Exhibit 10. It's a close-up of the bed.
Yes, sir. It's another, just a few more steps into the room and another photograph taken focusing on the bed.
And you referenced the fact that there was a lot of blood on the bed. This is J3 of State's Exhibit 10. Could you circle the areas that you were referencing in your testimony?
Yes, sir. This side of the bed right here.
Now, did the blood on the bed go beyond just the mattress and going further down in that photograph?
Yes, sir, it did.
Can you show the members of the jury what you're referring to?
You can see it coming down the side of the bed right here, and it's actually pooled on the floor right here.
So this is J4 of State's Exhibit 10. Ms. Fletcher, would you agree that on the top of the bed there appear to be 2 distinct areas of blood?
Yes, sir.
And what is was that area in between them a void? Would you consider that a void?
Yes, sir. As far as blood goes, yes.
Yes, ma'am. What did that tell you, if anything, about what you observed at the scene? As far as the position of the person who was there?
Well, it had been indicated to me that she had been found partially with her upper half on the bed, and those stains were consistent with how it was reported to me that she was found.
going to skip ahead to J7 of State's Exhibit 10. Why did you take that photograph?
In order to show just the amount of blood, that it wasn't just on the top of the mattress, it had actually soaked through the mattress, the box spring, and then onto the floor.
When I approached the witness who has been previously marked as State's K, can you show me, counsel?
You may.
Ms. Fletcher State's K is composite of 2 photos. Such as before, should you let me know when you have a chance to look at them?
Yes, sir.
You recognize them?
Yes, sir, I do.
And they fair and accurate depictions of a portion of the victim's floor bedroom as of September 18th.
Yes, sir.
Stewart has support you against State's K, State's 11.
Any objection?
No objection.
This will be admitted without objection as states 11.
Permission to publish State's 11 then?
Granted.
Ms. Fletcher, why did you take a photograph of what's in State's Exhibit 11?
I took a photograph because there's an envelope here with a substantial amount of cash in it.
No, that was the first photograph. This is a photograph, actually this is listed, the one I'm showing you now is listed as 1. That's a close-up of the same image, correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Actually, you can read Chase Bank. It's a Chase Bank envelope that you found sort of tucked under the pillow.
Yes, sir.
Did you actually open that envelope to see if there was any money in it?
Yes, sir, I did.
And was there any cash located within that envelope?
There was.
Do you remember approximately how much there was?
Not off the top of my head, no. I can reference my report if you wish, though.
Sure. Do you have a copy of it with you?
Mhm.
Counsel, any objection?
No.
Go ahead.
It contained $950.
Were you directed or were you intentionally looking for those envelopes?
Yes, I had been informed by Detective Thorpe that she was known to keep envelopes with a substantial amount of cash in them, so we just wanted to see if they were still in the residence.
What was your understanding of where they were supposed to be located?
They were supposed to be located within picture frames that had been sitting on that dresser.
Is that where you found them?
No, sir. Unfortunately, because of fire department coming through and the state of the home when I got there, we had to search the pile of personal items and debris that were on the floor in order to find them.
Did you eventually locate what you believe to be photograph frames?
Yes, sir.
Were they in one piece or in multiple pieces?
They were in multiple pieces.
But you only found one envelope full of cash, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now that we've looked at all of the photographs, I'm going to talk to you about your efforts to process the scene. What other efforts did you make to process the evidence at that residence?
In addition to marking and collecting anything that I perceived as evidence that I could take with me, I also processed the residence for fingerprints.
Where did you look for fingerprints within the residence?
I looked anywhere that it appeared that a cabinet had been opened or an item had been moved in order to try to find a suspect.
Now, why would you just not randomly dust the entire house or use other methods to search the entire house?
It's not beneficial to me. In order to find my victim's prints in her own home, what I'm looking for is an unknown person that's in the home. Therefore, any areas that appeared to have been disturbed, more than likely not by my victim, is the area that I chose to process in order to try to find that unknown individual instead of just finding my victim's fingerprints in her own home.
Now, I use the word dust. What processes did you use to search for prints within that residence?
I used to, the first being the standard dusting, what you would see on TV with a dusting brush. And then in addition to that, I used what's called Amido Black. It's actually a wet chemical that you use. More specifically, you use it in areas that dusting's not probative due to the soot and the moisture that's already in the home. And then due to the areas I was searching having trace amounts of blood, Amido Black is particularly good with looking for prints in blood.
Were you successful in obtaining any prints from that scene?
I did obtain 2 prints from the front screen door using dusting. And then the areas I processed with Amido, I got several reactions indicating that there was a presence of blood, but there was no ridge detail to warrant me lifting it and submitting it because it's not useful or valuable for comparison.
And by ridge detail, could you just describe what that is briefly?
Sure. When you touch something, you leave a fingerprint, and what you actually look for in that fingerprint are the ridge details and differentiations in that ridge detail. So when you process, you can sometimes tell that the item has been touched, but that there's no ridge detail in order to make it valuable for comparison.
Those two prints that you got from the front door, did you send them for testing?
Yes, sir, I did.
And they came back to the victim, Ortega, is that right?
I actually have no independent recollection of where they came back to.
Are you aware of any prints foreign to the victim coming back in this case?
No, sir, I'm not.
Did you attempt to identify or locate any DNA evidence at the scene?
Not at the scene, no.
Or did you take anything back with you that you then later tested for DNA evidence?
Yes, sir, I did.
Can you describe for the jury what you did in regards to the DNA evidence or seeking it?
As far as the photographs that we talked about earlier, those frames, we did find the two photographs that were believed to have been in the frames. Those items were processed again with Amido Black in order to determine if they were prints, and then also swabbed to determine the prints that did come back in blood, whose blood it was. And then in addition to that, I collected a coffee mug from the home and swabbed it for potential DNA.
In addition to those swabbings, or the swabs of those items, did you obtain physical evidence from the victim? When I say you, I really mean the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Did they recover samples taken from the victim, and from where did they get that?
There was several items obtained from the District 9 Medical Examiner's Office during autopsy, items that they had collected that were handed over to us in order for submission for potential DNA.
Did you ever receive DNA reports back from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the lab, regarding the presence or lack of DNA at that scene or from those items?
Yes, sir, I did.
Was any foreign DNA found in any of those items you tested?
No, sir.
So despite all your efforts, you're unaware of any foreign prints or DNA that was recovered from the scene of this crime at 5020 Turnbull Drive, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And what you did basically was document.
Sustained.
Did you document the scene?
Yes, sir, I did.
Photographs. Now, at some point later in the investigation of this case, there was a search warrant executed at 4756 Turnstone Drive. Did you have anything to do with that?
No, sir, I was no longer employed with the Sheriff's Office at the time.
You left voluntarily? Right?
Yes, sir, I did.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross.
Your primary role is to collect evidence and document scenes, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're not a crime scene reconstruction expert, right?
No, sir, I'm not an expert.
Okay. And you don't give any opinions about blood pooling or blood spatter or anything of that nature in terms of what took place in a crime scene, do you?
No, sir.
Did you call anybody in to do that?
No, sir.
Did you take a photograph of her nightgown?
I don't believe so.
So fair to say that there was not a large amount of blood on the nightgown then?
I would have no independent recollection of it, sir.
I'm sorry?
I would have no independent recollection, sir.
Okay, but if there had been, you would have photographed that, right?
Or it would have been evidence turned over from the District 9 Medical Examiner's Office. You would have to refer to their photographs. Once I obtain it, it's sealed in a bag.
When you photographed the bed with a large amount of blood, correct?
Yes, sir.
You thought that was important?
Of course.
Right. So if there was a lot of blood on the nightgown, you would have photographed that as well, correct?
Had I not obtained the nightgown already in a sealed bag.
So you never actually saw the nightgown?
I saw it briefly on her prior to the medical examiner's office taking her body.
So you went to the medical examiner's office to do an autopsy, or
No, sir.
did you say you got the nightgown from there, or
Yeah, they packaged the evidence during the autopsy and it's turned over to the sheriff's office.
when they send it back to you?
Yes, sir.
The only place where the large amount of blood was on the bed, correct?
That I observed, yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Fletcher, at the time you worked this crime scene, this wasn't the first scene you ever worked, yes, sir?
No, sir, it was not.
And it wasn't the first scene that you ever worked where there was a deceased individual?
That's correct.
So you were aware that that body...
Objection, not leading.
Sustained.
Were you aware of what would happen to the body of the deceased once it was taken from the scene?
Yes, sir.
You would go to the medical examiner's office.
Yes, sir.
And are you aware of what they do with it and the items that go along with the body once they receive it?
Yes, sir.
What do they do with it?
They obviously bring her to the office. She'll have an autopsy, and during that autopsy, they not only take her clothing as physical evidence, but then they collect any potential physical evidence on the body based on their protocol, and then based on anything additional requested by the homicide detective.
So they package everything and photograph it?
Objection, not leading.
Sustained. Rephrase.
Do they package it and photograph it as well?
Yes, sir. They're forensic technicians. They're photograph it, package it, and by the time I receive it, it's in a sealed bag.
Is that what happened in this case?
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
May this witness be excused.
She is excused under the read by State, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You're free to go. Thank you. Ms. Barrett, call your next witness.
The state calls Nicholas Incontrera.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please tell us your name and spell your last name for the court reporter?
Sure. Nicholas Incontrera, I-N-C-O-N-T-R-E-R-A.
What is it that you do for a living, sir?
I'm a detective with the State Fire Marshal.
Prior to becoming a detective with the State Fire Marshal, do you have any law enforcement experience?
Yes, ma'am. Prior to the State Fire Marshal, I was a detective at Eustis. I worked there for about 3.5 years, and prior to that, I was 20 years in New York City Police Department.
Going back to your role as a State Fire Marshal, I want to talk to you a little bit about that. What type of specific training to your Fire Marshal position have you received?
When you first start, you get a minimum of 320 hours of classes at the State Fire College about fire investigation. They're broken into 40-hour increments. One specifically would be origin and cause.
When you talk about origin and cause, what exactly does that mean?
Well, one of our major functions is determining the origin where a fire started and the cause of it, what caused the fire.
And so as part of your schooling, you spent 40 hours specifically on that topic.
That's correct.
And then you also had, well, a total of 320 hours of fire-related education.
Right, that's the basic core curriculum that we go through, but then there's ongoing training where it's either online or in a classroom, and it's at least several times a year we get updated training.
Okay. And the updated training, is that on a variety of topics?
Yes, mostly fire investigation related, but it could be vehicle fires, stovetop fires, that kind of thing.
As you sit here today, approximately how many fire investigations have you been the lead investigator on?
368.
And in addition to the 368 that you've been lead, have you been an assistant role to other investigations?
Yes, I have.
About how many of those?
I'd say it's got to be at least 100. I don't have an exact track on it, but it's at least 100, if not more.
And going back to September of 2013,
Yes, ma'am.
are you aware of how many fire investigations you were lead on at that point in time?
Yes, 147.
And have you ever testified as an expert pertaining to origin and cause in courts in Orange County, Florida?
Yes, twice before.
Sir, what are the goals of a fire marshal? What is it specifically that you get called in to do?
We get called in to investigate basically the origin and cause. When the fire department puts a fire out, if they can't figure out how it started, if they think it's intentionally set, if a civilian is killed or likely to die, if a firefighter is injured, if it's on state property, or if a suppression system fails to activate, those are the criteria we'll come and investigate.
Now, on September 18th, 2013, did you respond to a scene?
Yes, ma'am.
And specifically, were you called out to 5020 Turnbull Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
When you arrived on scene, who was there already?
Orange County Fire Rescue was there, and there were some uniformed Orange County deputies, and my lieutenant was also on the scene.
And do you get a general briefing when you arrive on scene?
Yes, we'll speak to the fire department, see what they did for fire suppression, what they encountered when they arrived, and deputies if they have any information.
Now, prior to entering the structure, do you ensure that it's safe, or do you make efforts to determine whether or not it's a safe area?
Yes, after consulting with the fire department, you want to make sure that, depending on the nature of the fire, that the power is off to the structure, because when you're investigating, if it turns out to be an electrical fire, you don't want to handle an electrical wire when you still have power to the structure. So that would be an example of one of the safety factors we'd be looking for.
And do you start your examination to the exterior of the building?
Yeah, you start from the outside.
Mayor, first witness.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just going to approach the screen here.
Mhm.
Sir, these photographs have already been admitted into evidence as states for. If you could take a look over your left-hand shoulder. And do you recognize that image?
Yes, I do.
And is that the address that you responded to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of take you around the exterior of the house, and you specifically as a fire marshal, what things are you looking for around the exterior of the house?
Okay, when we go around the exterior, we do basically a 360-degree around the house, looking for other safety factors like down wires or other evidence of where the fire could have started, whether it's above ceiling level or if it vented out any doors or windows.
Okay. And as you go around the exterior, are you looking for any other items or things that could accidentally have caused the fire?
Yes.
And are you trying to rule them out as you go?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you check, and actually I'll remain there, and I don't know if you can tell from this image, but do you know what that is right there?
Yes, on that side of the structure, that's the electrical service entrance and meter base. That will be one of the things we look at. In this particular case, the power company had removed the meter, which tells me that there's no power to the structure at the time that I'm going to investigate the fire. And we examine that to see if it shows any signs of failure that could have caused or contributed to the fire. And in this case, it was in good condition and did not cause or contribute to the fire.
Now, once the external area of the house has been inspected, did you go inside the house?
Yes, ma'am.
When you went inside the house, was somebody with you?
There were some of the Orange County, I believe the crime scene investigator, my lieutenant.
And when you start to walk through the house, is there a reason why you and the crime scene investigator would go at the same time?
Sure. In this particular case, it's not just a fire. There's another factor involved that their agency would be involved in. So we'll do it together, so basically to coordinate, not trip over each other, and not taint any evidence that someone might need to look at.
And is it fair to say that the crime scene investigator may be looking at different types of evidence that you are looking for?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it fair to say that when you take photographs, you're focused on your investigation of whether or not it was arson?
That's correct.
Okay. And as you went through the house, did you take photographs of the interior as you went?
Yes, ma'am.
And through your walkthrough of the house, could you determine where the fire or the origin of the fire started?
Yes, I did determine that.
And where within the house did the fire start?
Well, in this particular case, there were 3 separate points of origin in the house. There were 2 on the east side of the structure and 1 on the west side of the structure.
On the day that you were inspecting the house, you mentioned that there were 3 separate points of origin. Did you do a sketch of the house
I did.
to indicate where those were?
Yes.
May I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I'm approaching you with what's been previously marked as States O. Do you recognize this item, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And what is that?
That is a sketch that I drew relative to this investigation.
And is it fairly and accurately, or is it the sketch that you actually?
It's the sketch that I drew.
Okay, Your Honor, this time the state would like to move what's been previously marked as O in evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
This will be received without objection as State's Exhibit Number 12.
Now, sir, you were just discussing 3 separate points of origin within the house.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you could take a look over your shoulder and describe where those points of origin on that sketch are.
Well, this would be the front entrance to the structure. There was a closet here in a hallway near the bedrooms. That was one area where there was a fire. And then on this side of the structure, there's a washing machine here. It's in a laundry room. There was a point of origin here. And then if you continue through the room, there was another room behind it that I kind of designated as a sewing room because it had a sewing machine in it. And there was a point of origin just inside the door on a chair in that room.
As we go through your testimony, we're going to hit each specific point of origin as we go, so that chart may be going back and forth throughout the
Yes, ma'am.
testimony. May I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I'm showing you what's been marked as a composite as states AG. It's several photographs for you to take a look.
Yes, ma'am. These are photographs that I took.
Okay. And do they fairly and accurately depict what you saw on that morning when you went into that home?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, at this time, the state would like to move what's been previously marked as AG into evidence.
No objection.
This will be received as State's Exhibit Number 13 without objection.
And permission to publish.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, sir, part of your sketch, you have indicated washing machine, correct?
That's correct.
Look here. I'm showing you now what's number 4 of AG, or excuse me, of Exhibit 13. Now, if you could just explain to the jury what it is we're looking at here.
Okay, this area here, this is the washing machine, and there were some towels that were on top of it, and you can see that they're burned.
We have here.
If you're coming from the dining room into the laundry room, as you come through the door, you would see the washing machine on your left with that damage. Next to that was like a slop sink, a water heater. There was a shower curtain hanging. Then you have this door that, when you proceed through this door, you enter into that back room that I called a sewing room.
Why is it that you call it the sewing room?
There was like an old-fashioned tabletop sewing machine in there and an ironing board. So just as a point of remembrance, a designation for a room.
Okay. And so going back to the chart, now, if you could just give the path of travel as to where we're going.
Okay, again, this was the front entrance, and you could either cut through the kitchen into the dining room, and you would go through the door into this laundry room. Again, this would be where the washing machine was, and if you continued through that room into the back room where the sewing room is, that's where that last photo you see entering that door.
May I approach the witness? Sir, I'm now approaching you with what's been marked as AH. Same thing, you can take a look at those.
Yes, ma'am.
You recognize those items?
I do.
What are they?
They are the photographs that I took.
And did they fairly and accurately depict what you saw?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time the state removed AH into evidence?
No objection.
This will be received without objection as State's Exhibit number 14.
Now, as we're moving into the sewing room, if you could, what in this picture as a fire marshal stands out to you?
Okay, again, this is heading into that sewing room. I'm still in the laundry room, and on the right side here we have the dryer, which is in good condition. Control panel on that is in good condition, so it didn't cause or contribute to the fire. There's soot on the wall, and you can start to see at the top of the door jamb there's some charring, and I can see evidence that there was fire in this room.
And what are we looking at here?
That's as we're entering into the sewing room. There's an ironing board. You can see ceiling fan blades that were starting to fold in as a result of heat exposure. There's a room air conditioner in the wall here, and the ceiling and the wall at that height level are black with soot as a result of heat damage.
What's significant about that photograph?
Okay, that is a slight step back just before you come into the sewing room, and you can see charring. You can see charring on the door jamb, on the top and the side and the corner of this door, indicating that fire is starting to come out of that room.
And what are we looking at here?
Okay, this photo is, I'm now turned around and facing back towards the laundry room. These chairs were just inside the door as you stepped into the sewing room.
Okay. And were those two chairs the exact same chair as far as make and style of the chair?
They look to be the same, and the term I would use is, since the one on the left is more burned than the one on the right would be an exemplar of what the burned one should have looked like if it hadn't been burned.
Appear that there was something placed on the seat.
Well, the chair on the left, it looked like a pile of towels, and you can obviously see that that's burned and had been on fire, and then the fire traveled up, burning away the back of the chair and continuing up the wall.
What's the significance of the white area that we can see on that chair?
Okay, the white area, what you'll notice is this is white directly behind the chair, and then above it it's a little bit black. When a fire burns and it produces smoke and soot, you'll have soot on the wall, but as the fire burns longer and hotter, it'll eventually get to a temperature where the soot will get burned away. And once the soot is burned away, you will have that white area because now you've removed the soot from it.
So that is a direct contact with fire.
Right, that would indicate that that's where the seat of the fire in that particular location is, the most intense part of the fire. Same angle, but just angled upward a little bit, showing fire travel up the wall, charring, blistering of the paint, and melting of photographs.
Finally.
And that's just a further angle up where you can see fire damage to the ceiling and the wall above where the seat was.
And would that mean that the actual flame rose up to the ceiling?
That's correct.
Now, you had mentioned that there were 3 points of origin. We talked about the wash machine, we talked about the chair in the sewing room, and what was the third?
The third point of origin was at a linen closet in the hallway leading to the bedrooms on the other side of the house, on the west side of the house.
If you could, for the jury, point out exactly where that third fire was.
Okay, that would be right in this area.
May I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
AI identification? Same thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize them?
I do.
And do they fairly and accurately depict what you saw that day?
Yes, ma'am.
At this point, the state would admit there's been previously marked as AI.
Any objection? This will be received without objection as State's Exhibit 15.
Now, as we begin talking about this closet, we could just kind of orient us to where the closet is when we look at this photograph.
Okay, we're looking down the hallway leading to the closet and the bedrooms. This door, there's a door here, there's a bedroom where this door is open on the left side. There's another bedroom in the back corner on the left. When you look to the right, where you can see this, where it's starting to be burned on the right side, that would be where the closet is.
And so, just going back to our chart, which way would you be facing from that photograph?
Okay, so I would have been standing about in this area and facing this way, which is a westerly direction when I took that photograph.
Now, you mentioned that there is a door here.
Yes, right here.
Is closed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall what was in that door or behind that door?
Yes, in this next photograph, there's the HVAC air handler for the structure.
And did you check that out?
Yes, the purpose of demonstrating in this photograph is that you open the door and there's another electrically powered appliance, and you want to examine that and determine whether or not that could have caused or contributed to the fire, and in this case, it did not cause or contribute to the fire.
Continuing down the hallway.
Yeah, we're getting closer to the closet. The linen closet is here on the right side. Directly across from the closet, there's an electrical receptacle that's in good condition and did not cause or contribute to the fire. And the pink stuff that you see is insulation. The fire department pulled that down during suppression. And some of the clothes that were in the closet have spilled out. And this long white piece here would be the folding door for the closet.
You referenced the folding door for the closet. Is that a photograph of that door once you retrieve it from the bottom or from the floor?
Yes, it is.
And what's significant about this image in this door? What does it tell you about the fire?
Well, relative to the door, it tells me that the door was open. So it's an accordion type door, so when you open it, it folds together. And it would have been in the open position, which would be folded closed at the time of the fire. And this line right here of demarcation gives me an indication where you have all this rust up top. That's actually oxidation from heat exposure. But that pattern would tell me that the fire was to the right of it.
Going back to the area of the closet itself, from that photograph, it appears that the doors have been removed. What is it that you're doing as you conduct your investigation?
Okay, at this particular point, we're trying to get to the floor, and it's where I talk about it's like archaeology. We have to systematically go through it layer by layer, looking for an ignition source to the fire. So the bifold door was lifted out, and we're slowly getting to the floor because we want to see the floor and what else is there.
When you say ignition source, what do you mean by that?
Well, in order to have a fire, you have to have a heat source that's going to ignite something. And sometimes you can find that ignition source, and sometimes it's not there because it might have been removed.
Now, what are examples of ignition sources?
An ignition source could be a failed electrical wire. It could be a cigarette lighter, a match, some type of open flame.
Is this just a continuation of you digging to get to the floor?
Sure, because when you do systematically layer it, you photograph and document every layer you go through to see what's there and what's not. If you'd flip that I rotate it left.
Rotate left.
Yeah. Again, it's another picture of the floor where you can see the white tile. We're trying to get to the floor to see if there's any indication of a heat source, or B, signs of an ignitable liquid having been poured on the floor. And what we can see in this photo is that the white tile is in good condition, does not show any signs of, in that area, of an ignitable liquid. And this is the door track that's relatively still intact that the bifold door would run along.
So if I understand you correctly, if, let's just say hypothetically there was gasoline poured, that would be where you'd be looking to see if there was actually gas used as part of this.
Yes.
And if there was no gas there, it could just simply be an open flame, such as a lighter using to ignite the fire.
Correct.
Going back to your chart, so there are three separate, as you described, origins. How do you know that those three are not linked together?
Well, they're what we call, in this case, non-communicating points of origin. In other words, one of those fires isn't responsible for starting the other fire. If you have a fire in close proximity to another object that's easily combustible, the flame from this first fire could communicate to that one and cause that fire. But in this case, each of those fires are separate and distinct. They have areas of no fire damage between them, meaning that one did not start the other. They had to be independently ignited.
And obviously there are two rooms specifically that are in between these fires. So you have the two fires over here, and
Correct.
then you have the fire that was over there.
Correct. In between there, you have the living room where there's actually no actual fire damage.
Okay. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about next. I'm showing you what's been previously marked as AK.
Yes, ma'am.
And does AK fairly and accurately depict what you saw that day?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, I'd like to move AK into evidence.
No objection.
This will be received as number 16 without objection.
Thank you. And Commissioner Pupple.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you had indicated that there was no fire damage, and which room is this?
Okay, this is the living room facing towards the bedroom area. You can see that it is soot covered, but there's no actual flame damage in that area.
And was there any flame damage in any portion of the living room area?
No, there was not. This is a reverse angle, and I guess essentially behind this wall would be where the laundry room is. But you can see there's a leather couch, a table here. They have soot, but there is no actual fire damage in that room.
Our first witness.
Yes.
So I'm approaching you with AJ. Did AJ fairly and accurately depict what you saw on that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, state we move what's been previously marked as AJ into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
This will be received without objection as number 17 for the state.
Now, we as lay people often hear that fires start in the kitchen, just about common sense nature. And did you inspect the kitchen area?
Yes, I did.
What stands out to you about the kitchen?
Again, like the living room, there's actually no fire damage. So, again, one of the steps is where is there no fire, or where are electrically powered items or accidental causes that could have contributed. And in this case, you have a microwave, you have an electric range oven with a stovetop, and you actually have easily combustible material sitting on the stovetop that are not damaged by fire. And this would be the reverse angle of that picture. Refrigerator on the left, toaster oven above the dishwasher. All of them are in relatively good condition considering there was a fire in the house, so those items did not cause or contribute to the fire.
Now, Is it your opinion that there was nothing in that house that would have caused an accidental fire?
Well, not that there was nothing that could have caused it, but in this particular case, these 3 points of origin were not caused by accident. They were intentionally set by means of an open flame, independently of each other.
And intentionally set fire in 3 different locations by means of an open flame, would that include simply a Bic lighter?
Sure, it could be a Bic lighter, it could be a matchstick, it could be a piece of paper that was ignited and removed from the scene.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I have no further questions.
Cross.
So an open flame, but no ignitable liquid was used? You could find?
I did not find evidence of an ignitable liquid.
What do you do to look for that?
Again, as we showed in the photographs, you try to get down to the floor, and you can take samples and send them to the lab to determine whether, yes, sir.
So I assume you thoroughly looked into that issue about ignitable fluids, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're confident that was used?
I found no evidence of it being used, and the lab report indicated that none was determined in the samples submitted, but the lab report always comes with a disclaimer that a negative finding does not preclude an ignitable liquid being used at the scene.
But you're confident one was not used, correct?
I'm confident that I didn't find any evidence of an ignitable fluid being used.
So you're not confident about the report then?
I'm not the lab technician. I didn't generate the report.
You have no reason to doubt the report, though, do you?
No.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
Yes, ma'am. Sir, on that topic, when you take samples, can you take the entire house and sample it?
No.
Are you doing specific locations of where you sampled to see if there was any accelerant?
Yes.
Is it possible that sometimes you just miss it by an inch?
Yes.
And so when you send things off to the lab and they come back where there's no detection of an accelerant, does that mean that one wasn't used?
It doesn't mean that one wasn't used. Again, there's disclaimer on the lab report, and there's also a threshold level that they have to reach before they can say, yes, there's an ignitable liquid here.
So based on these 3 intentional fires that you saw, is it fair to say that there could have been an accelerant used, or maybe there wasn't?
There could have been a very small quantity used, but the nature of the way these burned, you wouldn't necessarily need an ignitable fluid because the materials that were ignited could easily be lit with a match or a cigarette lighter.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. You're free to go.
Thank you.
Anybody need a break, or are you doing okay? You need a break? All right. All right. Since there's 18 of you, we're going to take a 15-minute break. Thanks.
You know that. Jury executive.
Got it. It was weird. $15 minutes.